bad sex. There's a lot of immoral sex. There's a lot of disordered, gross, harmful sex that is nonetheless consensual. All of the cases that I mentioned, they're all immoral, bad, gross kids. That's my point, okay? So to all of a sudden act like this phenomenon of girls getting pregnant at a young age that we consider young, 16 or 17, to act like it's a new thing is ridiculous. It's always been that way. Even biologically, and this is me just stating, right now I'm going to start by just stating facts. So fact number one, it's not a new phenomenon. Fact number two, in fact, it's a phenomenon that was more common earlier in history and for less civilized 6 to 10,000 years of human existence.
Okay, if I ever wanted to get canceled, this is the video. I saw Cuties last night and it was pretty good. It's a pretty good movie. I went in ready.
It was a normal thing. Fact three, girls between the ages of like 17 and 24 is when they're technically most fertile. Yeah. Okay? That's biological. That's a fact, all right? I'm just stating facts. That's all I'm doing. But what happened recently, and this is the fourth fact, recently in the last 30 years or so, we decided that that's way too young to start a family. Why? And because now divorce rates would probably go up, and once you're that young, you can't really make sure that
all right, pause it, I'm sorry.
Social construct. I'll just put that out there. Because what are we really talking about? Why are people so upset when somebody is suffering? Well, that's because of the state of Florida, the age of consent is 18. It just so happens that the age of consent in Illinois is 17, and in other states it's 16. And it's
I'm only 16. I was banging her.
Andrew Tate. It's possible that you're dating somebody who's I will say that, let's think about what's really going on here.
You see it at the law firm working 2,200 hours. My dad used to make a point about this. He used to say,
Otherwise it's great. Are we really supposed to believe that people, adults, or adults, who are past the point of puberty,
A conservative accusation is a conservative confession. You've definitely heard that proverb before. But have you seen any actual examples of it? No, because the right wing, who dominates the media space and has since 2016, has covered things up. But alas, I'm here to show people who the real nonces are. And it's not the left. Now, the right wing has a paedophilia problem. To some people it may seem like a given. Sure, of course, for reasons we'll get into in a second. But for others, they who have been fed propaganda from the right for the past couple of months in regards to specific members of the LGBTQ community, and I'm not talking about MAPS, by the way, because they aren't a part of it. No, just transgenders, used to be gay people, are groomers now, it seems, right? But is this just projection? Well, it seems to me like it is. Now, don't get angry. If you're a right-winger watching this video, I'm not here to attack your ideas as a right-winger. That's been done on my behalf by the people you watch and like. And I will be speaking specifically about those people. I've also time-coded this video. See it in the description below. Only about those people. I will not be pointing out any right-wing ideas that are inferior in my opinion, or by fact, to left-wing ideas. I will just simply show and dissect clips of right-wing creators that you might watch, most popular ones, and saying really sus shite. Some really non-C1C bollocks, right? And from then on, we shall see who the real groomers are. So, without any further ado, let's get it. Jordan Peterson. Now, before we talk about our first paedophile, I'm just going to give you a dishonorable mention. Because he's not really a paedophile, but he's a paedophile enabler. Says some paedophilic shit. Makes it out to be okay. Jordan B. Peterson. Also the anti-trans grooming professor, smart fella. Apparently not. For example, look at this screenshot. Fella can't find some good quality child porn to get off to. Great start. Or how about this one where he defends paedophiles?
Well, did you know that 20 years ago the American Psychological Association published a paper showing that most people who were sexually assaulted as children recovered with very little psychological damage? This is an unassailable truth. Milo is the kind of person whom no one in acceptable society should ever speak to, which is, I suppose, one of the reasons why I'm talking with him. The following video that you are going to see this week is short bits from a quote-unquote forbidden conversation I had with Milo on my YouTube channel. Find the full video.
Yeah, whatever.
These are hard truths. I don't really give a damn if that's politically incorrect or not. I'm curious the response will on these clips. So let's start the conversation below.
Yeah, great lad. Definitely not a nonce. But let's move on to someone who is an actual paedophile. Milo Yiannopoulos. Also, this fella here, Milo Yiannopoulos, said, also a paedophile, said, Conservative Union residents' investigation after alt-right provocateur suggests sex between younger boys and older men could be a coming-of-age relationship. And Jordan Peterson promoted that conversation with him. So, again, tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are, yeah? Okay, let's go. Another dishonorable mention before I start is this piece of shit, Matt Gaetz, Republican senator for Florida, opened up about having a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old boy and paid to travel with him. He's now being investigated for sex trafficking. Yeah. CPAC. Great start, boys. Huge sneaker. Now we're going to be analysing some of the most paedophilic tendencies from some of the biggest right-wing creators, right? And the first fella I want to talk about, he's banned now, like all of them are. Fucking Godspeed, honestly, right? With your journey on BitChute, Sneeko. But it's Sneeko, the loudmouth Andrew Tate clone, right? Let's see what he has to say. He definitely isn't into grooming children. I mean, look at all those videos he made about trans people, right? Right? Right?
Okay, if I ever wanted to get canceled, this is the video. I saw Cuties last night, and it was pretty good. It's a pretty good movie. I wanted
No, I was wrong apparently. Sneeko isn't the arbiter of anti-grooming. I would go as far as to say that he's actually the opposite. Sneeko, what happened to all the it's the transes that are grooming our kids, right? I thought that was the crack. I thought you cared so much about children, right? I thought children aren't wise enough to experiment with their sexuality and their hormones at that age. And it's only the adults pushing it on them. What happened to all of that? But as soon when it's your favourite paedophilic director makes your favourite paedophilic movie and your little paedophilic arse has a cheeky little wank about it, right? Now all of a sudden it's okay.
Kids naturally just rebel. Kids naturally just don't want to do what they're told to do. So if you tell a kid, put on a headscarf, pray every day, dancing is for the devil, then they're gonna do it. If you told your kid that, oh, it's okay to express yourself, you can go to a dance class, probably shouldn't twerk and, shove your vagina in a camera if you're 11, then they're gonna be normal people. They're gonna be...
Yeah, the same way if you tell them, like, yeah, it's okay, you're just experimenting, who knows if you're a different gender. Well, it's only up to you. Go to a psychologist. He'd talk you out of it. If you still want to do it, go through with the complicated surgeries and all of that. It's still all up to you. You're still deciding. And hey, if you're on that HRT, you can always go back on it, right? Because we are normal people. We actually read studies and don't go off our feelings like some people. So we know that these hormones have been studied, and it's pretty conclusive that they're reversible. So yeah, you're gonna be, like Sneeko says,
that, oh, it's okay to express yourself. You can go to a dance class. Probably shouldn't twerk and, shove your vagina in a camera if you're 11. Then they're gonna be normal people. They're gonna be raised normally because...
Do you think you're even old enough to decide that you're a different gender? You've barely finished puberty. Yes. I am. I did a brain scan. And all the thing that's necessary if you want to transition. You have to get it psychiatrically interviewed for months. It's really complicated.
Director needs to be jailed. No, man, no.
no, Sneeko, you need to be put in jail.
They were saying, these kids need therapy, the parents need to be put in jail, the director needs to be jailed. No, man, no.
These actresses were really good.
Andrew Tate. Now, apart from the fact that he's being investigated for human trafficking, Andrew Tate, over the course of his long and tumultuous career, has had multiple, as the kids would say, bruh moments, Riz training order moments, when it comes to younger women specifically, right? We'll get into 3 instances of those. He's done and said some really, let's just say the stuff he's done and said goes against his whole anti-grooming thing as well, shall we? Right? This is a show don't tell kind of channel, so without any further ado.
That little Greta fucking Bumbaclaw
How dare you? I should be back in school.
running around the earth on planes, telling everyone we need to fucking do something. 16 years old. You don't know a fucking thing. Girls were hot. You're a child. On top of that, you're exceptionally unattractive. I know 16 years. They ain't that hot yet. By 18 they will be. Girls were hot. Never blossom. You're the flower that will never grow, Greta. So who gives a fuck what you think? Nobody. So fuck off back to Sweden.
And if that wasn't enough for you, here's him pretending to be your creepy granddad jumping in the pool with his daughter's friends at her 17-year-old birthday party.
I'm gonna tell him to try one more time. Please don't scare him off. Just chill, relax. I'm gonna tell him what to do. If he fucks it up again, we're gonna replace him and I'll find you a new boyfriend. Okay?
How about I do it later?
You don't want to do it on stream because he's been all weird now, like a fucking Fortnite world.
Pussy.
Weirded out. It's fine. If you ever, once you're 18, if you want to get yourself a real man, I know a guy.
You do?
I do, yeah. I do know a guy.
Who is it?
What? It's a long story. I can't tell you exactly who because there's bad things about him.
Yeah, so apparently pedophilia is absolutely hilarious, right? I mean, that's what they all say about Andrew Tate, he's playing a character and stuff, right? But he's literally just being a nonce. He's literally just being a nonce. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, sure, she doesn't seem very uncomfortable, but you have to remember, he's still a fucking child, right? Right? But anyways, let's see how, what your man says.
Yo, there's no fucking way you just said that. No, I actually overheard that. The fact that you fucking said that shit is fucking crazy. That's fucked up. You were deadass being a W fucking wingman, and the fact that you come in and say that shit is actually fucked up. Go ahead, bro. If you want to go fucking 18-year-old, that's weird. That is pretty weird. Because I know who you're talking about right now. You said once you turn 18, you would fly out to fucking Romania and fuck it. That is weird.
Yeah. W for that fella, by the way, for standing up for his girlfriend, right? In the face of this fucking creep. I don't like him, he dick sucks Andrew Tate, but this is a W moment for him, honestly, as his fans would say. And what could this Tate fella do? All he has is his fucking shite-eating grin on his face. He knows what he said is really fucking creepy, right? But he has absolutely zero fucking shame. That's what makes him a nonce. It's not her reaction to his nonciness. It really doesn't matter how a 17-year-old underage girl, I'm assuming they're in America, reacts to your advances as an almost 40-year-old man. Whether she takes it positively or negatively, it doesn't fucking matter. The fact that you're pulling an underage girl is what matters. And the fact that you have this fucking Chevy Chase on you, feeling absolutely no fucking shame, really says a lot, doesn't it? Anyways, boys, I'm not going to watch this XQC video, but...
And there's a few more screenshots of him flirting with 16-year-old girls over Instagram. Now, that's enough talk about Andrew Tate. Now let's talk about someone on the right wing who people actually like and respect if they're over the age of 13 and on the right wing. Person who, because of weird circumstances with YouTube's moderation system, we aren't able to name.
I was banging. I messaged her. She's like, I'm only 16. I was banging her.
Andrew Tate's pretty.
The next person I wanted to talk about, I can't even name them because YouTube, even with the new CEO in place, still has a system where if you say very bigoted things, you're able to get money off it and get rich. But if you criticize people who say those negative things and use clips of them and or say their name in your YouTube video, then your video will not only get demonetized, but you're also risking your channel getting completely terminated. So fuck that. We're not going to be talking about this person head on. We're just going to be talking about what he did, and you can read between the lines. The fella, the absolute scumbag I want to talk about, the absolute scumbag, no home, Google Chrome, leave me alone, is a fella called Wat Mulch. So Wat Mulch is a right-wing commentator for the Whaley Dyer. Well, he works there anyway, with Ben Shabibo. And he's obviously very conservative, fiscally conservative. Beyond that, kind of like John Doyle would say he is, but yeah, he calls himself a theocratic fascist on Twitter. So yeah, this man's fucking crazy. No women's rights, no gay rights, shit like that, Even when he talks about priests assaulting children, he's like, no, the problem isn't the Catholic Church. The problem is gay priests, as if pedophiles have a preferred gender that they go for. It's not like they just fuck kids because they're kids. No, they also prefer certain genders for the kids. Like, that's important. Well, we'll find out from this pedophile who's made that claim, which is our buddy, Wat Mulch. So let's see what he has to say. We won't show this clip from his YouTube channel. You can, if you don't believe me, here's a link for it. You can click on this link and watch the video for yourself. But beyond, I'm not even going to say that that's the link. Here, I'm just going to give you the link for what might or might not be the video where he says it. Wink, wink, I'm not saying it is, but click it if you don't believe what I'm about to say. We're going to deepen his voice, as if he already didn't sound like he was gargling gravel for the same amount of time as it took Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. And we're not going to show, most importantly, him or the clip itself, just the audio. Now you can listen for yourself and tell me your thoughts about it in the comments, as if I'm going to fucking read them.
Bad sex. There's a lot of immoral sex. There's a lot of disordered, gross, harmful sex that is nonetheless consensual. All of the cases that I mentioned, they're all immoral, bad, gross, harmful. But they're not all rape. Some of them were. sexual relations with a person, until we reclaim sexual morality and sexual boundaries, we will be stuck trying to condemn all bad sex on the grounds of consent, which expands the idea of consent so broadly as to render it meaningless, so that when we really need it, when there's actual non-consensual sex happening, we don't have any meaningful way to describe it, because the word consent has become increasingly means nothing, because we've expanded it so much. Meaningless, so that when we really need it, when there is actual non-consensual sex happening, we don't have any meaningful way to describe it, because the word consent has become is increasingly means nothing, because we've expanded it so much, and we've turned it into this complicated equation where nobody really knows when consent is happening, and even if a person does something willingly and is like, yes, let's do this, but even that might not be consent, because we turn consent into this super confusing calculus. Bad kids. That's my point, okay? So to all of a sudden act like this phenomenon of girls getting pregnant at a young age that we consider young, 16 or 17, to act like it's a new thing is ridiculous. It's always been that way. Even biologically, and this is me just stating, I'm going to start by just stating facts. So fact number one, it's not a new phenomenon. Fact number two, in fact, it's a phenomenon that was more common earlier in history, and for less civilized 6 to 10,000 years of human existence, it was a normal thing. Fact three, girls between the ages of like 17 and 24 is when they're technically most fertile. Yeah. Okay? That's biological. That's a fact, all right? I'm just stating facts. That's all I'm doing. But what happened recently, and this is the fourth fact, recently in the last 30 years or so, we decided that that's way too young to start a family. Why? And because now divorce rates would probably go up, and once you're that young, you can't really make sure that you know.
No, all right, pause it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, pretty creepy stuff. And let's not forget that old Watty Mulch also has to use plausible deniability to get his point across, to not sound like a complete feckin' predator, right? But even at that, right, if he has to use plausible deniability to get his point across, if you're a right-winger, I'm trying to have a good faith conversation with you right now through the screen. Why would he use plausible deniability to get his point across? Isn't the whole point of being offensive is saying things without a filter? You have to put a filter on. There's something he's holding back. What is it that he's holding back? Well, we'll have to see. He hasn't assaulted any children yet, which is good. But the fact that he focuses on trans people who aren't actually statistically known for assaulting children, unlike Republican senators, is pretty alarming. And by the way, at least they aren't talking about the age of consent. Nick Fuentes. Now this piece of shite needs no introduction, and to be honest, this segment ain't even about him. It's the people who he's able to interact with, hang around with and stuff, like just the second most influential and powerful black man in America. And the former president of the United States. Yeah. Tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. How about that, right? And this is what he said about, things like the age of consent, feminism, things that most normal people like you and me agree on. He seems to have a bit of a hot take. Now, a bit is an understatement, obviously. We are talking about the right here, and they are pedophiles, so.
Hey, too, the whole age of consent thing is really a feminist social construct. I'll just put that out there. Because what are we really talking about here? Why are people so upset if somebody is 17 rather than 18? Well, that's because in the state of Florida, the age of consent is 18. It just so happens that the age of consent in Illinois is 17, and in other states, it's 16. And it varies from country to country and state to state. But if the age of consent is 18 in Florida, then it is the worst thing possible that you're, dating somebody that's a year younger, right? End of the world. I will say that, let's think about what's really going on here. Age of consent means the age at which an adult can consent. Do we really believe that you have to be 18 years old in order to consent to sex, otherwise it's rape? Are we really supposed to believe that people, adults, grown adults who are past the point of puberty engage in a relationship and that becomes a rape?
Hey, too, the whole age of consent thing is really a feminist social construct. I'll just put that out there. Because what are we really talking about here? Why are people so upset if somebody is 17 rather than 18? Well, that's because in the state of Florida, the age of consent is 18. It just so happens that the age of consent in Illinois is 17, and in other states, it's 16. And it varies from country to country and state to state. But if the age of consent is 18 in Florida, then it is the worst thing possible that you're, dating somebody that's a year younger, right? End of the world. I will say that, let's think about what's really going on here. Age of consent means the age at which an adult can consent. Do we really believe that you have to be 18 years old in order to consent to sex, otherwise it's rape? Are we really supposed to believe that people, adults, grown adults who are past the point of puberty engage in a relationship and that becomes a rape?
Conventional wisdom, which is the best thing that you could do, is delay marriage until you make associate at the law firm working 2,200 hours. My dad used to make a point about this. He used to say, people would ask him about when to get married. And he said, or how to find the right person. And what he always said is you have to make the decision to get married before you find the right person. Because if you didn't make the decision that you wanted to get married, then the right person could come along.
And I could hit the biggest shark in the pond, Donald Trump, and say he's a big old nonce for going to Epstein's Island now. But right-wingers are going to say, oh, but he's rich. He's friends with everyone. He just brings everyone onto the island. I like him. That means he didn't fuck any kids. Right, maybe I'm being disingenuous. Okay. Maybe you're going to bring up the fact that Joe Brandon of all people, smelling little girls' hair, being creepier than Trump, and Trump is a good man. Look at this totally not staged propaganda video of him holding up a child, and the child is happy to be there. Must be a good person. Right, I'll grant you that, okay? This is an unbiased video after all. I'm trying to get through to right-wingers by talking to them in good faith. But the thing is, Joe Brandon isn't a leftist. If you compare him to people like me, he's barely any lefter leaning than any of the GOP for that matter, right? Liberalism is capitalism. Capitalism is right wing. Therefore, Joe Biden is technically right wing. Now, he might be a lesser evil than Trump and guarantees a vote for most normal people who don't want the country of America to fall into fascism. Not that I care, I'm not an American. But still, right? He's not a leftist. And so when you say the left are PDF files or trans people who are leftists are grooming kids and Marxism, it makes no sense. So yes, the right is still PDFphilic by the fact that Joe Biden smells little girls' hair, okay? He's still right wing. Smelling girls' hair, being a nonce. Nothing out of the ordinary for right wing. On to the next right winger.
And are beginning to express sexual behaviors far before the onset of puberty. As such, we need to look at where this line of thinking originates in order to understand what may be causing it. Real quickly, I do want to mention that although I'm talking about pedophilia and sexualization of children coming from the left, it's not like pedophiles have never been more traditionally conservative or right-wing. In fact, it's kind of the only thing you typically can bring up when you talk about pedophilia, it seems, is talking about Catholic priests molesting kids, which they absolutely did.
I don't blame every priest when one touches a boy. Let's afford that same respect to everyone else in the story.
They did in quite horrifying frequency, too. I suggest watching the documentary The Keepers. That'll wake you up. The fact of the matter is, though, is that was, while covered up by the Catholic archdiocese, churches, and organizations, it was never accepted. It was never viewed as part of the mainstream.
Yeah, as opposed to so-called pedophilia on the left, which is viewed as the mainstream. Like, what exactly is she saying here? Does she think that the left just thinks pedophilia is normal and okay? The whole maps thing? Oh boy, that's what we're getting into anyway. Apparently, according to Aiden, the left thinks pedophilia is okay, which is absolute bullshit. I don't think, if you're a smart person, I have to explain to you why that is. But let's go anyway. Let's entertain this idea that pedophilia is somehow okay on the left.
Deviance. This is a little bit different. This is acceptance, and it comes from a place of philosophy that it just doesn't when it's happened on the right. A quick glance at any Antifa riot, or a quick question lobbed to any number of the screeching protesters out on the streets in their hatred of Trump about the invisible Nazis supposedly running rampant across this nation, will reveal an affinity for communism and socialism across the entire game.
Oh yeah, invisible Nazis that Trump is having fucking dinner with. Oh, I didn't know that Nick was a Nazi. Bullshit. Like, fucking Kanye West, he definitely knew he was a fucking Nazi, right? Oh, but he's black, he can't be a Nazi. Come on, lads. Get better material. Right? You're acting like fucking Petrosian, man. For real. For real, lads. You're not fucking Kramer. But, look. I'll put it to you this way. The Nazis thing is one thing, right? I don't know why she's bringing it up. We're talking about child created, onset mercantile capitalism, which forced people into small family units in order to be cogs in the machine, unlike during feudal times and before, when shit like that wasn't really needed, because the only thing that was generating money for the economy was farm production, and there wasn't a specific amount of workers needed for that. Things became more organized, and thus the family became more organized. The prototype for the nuclear family was created around those times in the late 1700s, right? And now it's being dismantled. I don't see what the problem is, Aiden. We're just going back to tradition.
Evident, and serves to explain why these individuals who call themselves commies or socialists, despite likely never having read the Communist Manifesto, to say nothing of Das Kapital, have also either learned to be accepting of this overt sexualization, and perhaps even adopted a willingness to add a P to the ever-growing LGBTQIAA+ acronym, given the beliefs and writings of their thought leaders over time, or are in contrast just clueless enough due to their lack or the obfuscation in their education about these realities of far-left thought that they cannot see the very, very dangerous road this is leading down into the overt acceptance of pedophilia. You may think then, since we are talking about the roots of outright...
Oh yeah, she's definitely going to explain how, by the way, and definitely not going to go into a completely unhinged tangent about shite that has absolutely nothing to do with anything, and is full of... Well, I'm not going to call you a liar, Aiden, but... if you chatted more shit, you'd be a fucking sewer pipe.
Hedonic sexual expression to the point of including children into the beliefs present in modern-day communist and socialist movements, that it may make sense to start seemingly at the beginning. Where is the beginning? With Marx and Engels, right? And trust me, we will get to them, particularly to Engels. But the history of hedonic anti-Western thought, if you want to call it anti-Western, I sure would, but at least anti-Western thought in terms of the dissolution of everything regarding what we conceive of as traditional relationships, from monogamy to the sexualization of children, actually actually begins a bit further back, with the likes of Charles Fourier. While Fourier believed women should be able to hold any position held by a man, he also thought that all labor, all activity, should be done for the purpose of seeking pleasure, and imagined a utopian world of essentially limitless sex, and even ongoing orgies when everyone felt like it. He believed marriage was limiting to women, and advocated not just for the dissolution of marriage, but for the concept of monogamy altogether, of a utopia defined for men, women, and children by his own words, of endless earthly pleasure, that the appeasal of the physical body and of the pleasure that it perceives is the ultimate purpose of human labor and ultimately extents. Hakim Bey, the anarchist NAMBLA member mentioned in the first part of this video series, writes of Fourier, quote, "In Fourier's system of harmony, all creative activity, including industry, craft, agriculture, etc., will arise from liberated passion. This is the famous theory of attractive labor. Fourier sexualizes work itself, the life of the phalanstry, a continual orgy of intense feeling, intellection, and activity, a society of lovers and wild enthusiasts." Well, imagine my shock. Of course it makes sense why Bey, a pedophile, would find the sexualization of all of life attractive, as it would allow for children and adult relationships to fall into that endless hedonism, into the fulfillment of sexual and physical desires, no matter what.
Oh yeah, also the fact that I've never ever heard of this guy proves that he's totally a very big figure on the left that most people there support. Definitely Aiden. Right? It's not like you found some niche fucking creep who calls himself a leftist. By the way, P.S. there's pedophiles like that in every single political ideology ever, right? Pedophiles aren't constrained to politics after all, right? But just the fact that I've never heard of him, and I'm somewhat of a connoisseur of left-wing thought and philosophy, kind of proves you're full of shite. Yeah. Kind of makes you, what's the word? Dishonest. Facetious. Fascist. Sorry.
They may entail. No matter how repulsive or repugnant we, in our evil, Western, capitalist society, may perceive them to be, because obviously we're in the wrong, but hey, we'll get there. Fourier, though, preceded Marx and Engels, but his writing was influential to parts of their philosophy, particularly in his beliefs on the dissolution of the family and the relative liberation of women from an oppressive system of class division, such as he perceived it and such as Marx and Engels did as well. According to Marx and Engels, class division and alienation between the classes are the ultimate cause of the world's woes, and the only method of removing this division between the ruling classes, the bourgeoisie, and the working class, the proletariat, was the complete and total restructuring of society. And while this obviously, as most people know, involves the seizure of the means of production and the redistribution of all wealth in society in order to remove the instability and imbalance that they perceived as an inherent part of capitalism's class division. However, that is not all that was required. What is ultimately needed as a part of the final goal of communism is a restructuring on the most basic and fundamental levels of human society, starting with society's most simplistic collective unit, the family. In the Communist Manifesto, they write of the measures need be taken to establish the communist utopia, which, by the way, one line before this, they admit will be typified by violent despots in the transitional period. Like, you know, has happened every single goddamn time communism has been attempted, given the necessity of a strong despot to seize the means. Gee, what have we seen in Venezuela? What did we see in the Soviet Union? What have we seen every time?
Oh yes, Venezuela, my favorite socialist state. That's so fucking socialist that I think I'm gonna cry. Well, you know what I mean, Ed? At least they're fucking honest about them, you know, having maybe some despots after the establishment of a communistic society after the collapse of capitalism. I mean, mainly because of the fact that capitalism kind of creates an aversion to everything non-capitalist. It kind of compounds on itself after the communist revolution would come. Now, I'm not a communist, but I understand that it's like an immovable force meets an unstoppable force meets an immovable object kind of shit, right? That's what happens, and that's why shit dissolves into fucking chaos. Don't want it? Become an anarchist, boy. We here believe
ability to have sex whenever they desire, while the worker, in contrast, must engage in time management, and therefore cannot be fully happy if sex is not constantly available to him or her. He further stated in his work Character Analysis.
Okay, so sexual revolution equals pedophilia. She hasn't explained why it does. She hasn't given any examples. And I know I've skipped through the video, but I watched it. She says absolutely fucking nothing of value for the next 10 minutes or the last 10 minutes. But at least these 10 minutes are slightly more important, so let's see it.
That the control of our sexual instincts makes, quote, an orderly sexual life and full sexual experience impossible. That is, the person who in any way attempts to control his or her and mitigate his or her sexual desires will not only never have a full life, but will generally be unhappy and act irrationally. While his ideas were generally dismissed by mainstream communist thinkers at the time, later writers and philosophers who would expand upon his thesis of sexual pleasure and alienation would bring Reich into the forefront during the ensuing sexual revolution, when, for example, copies of his book, The Sexual Struggle of Youth, were sold door to door in dorms at the University of Paris and exploded in popularity, inciting protest even across the student population regarding their perceived repression. While Reich saw little acceptance during his life amongst the far-left leaders, others who shared his obsession with the necessity and attainment of sexual pleasure absolutely did during theirs, namely most famously Herbert Marcuse of the Frankfurt School. Much like Reich in his book Eros and Civilization.
Finally, there we go. Cultural Marxism is the key to pedophilia. Let's go.
Hughes did more than merely include sexual alienation as a part of the class struggle, but rather totally redefined the differences in people not as a conflict of class or economics, but as a conflict of repression. Repression of sexuality, specifically, which, as described by Engels in The Origin of the Family, in the replacement of the free matrilineal proto-socialist society with the repressive, classist, paternalistic family system, therefore, in Marcuse further discussion, means that, quote, the price of progress is the prevalence of guilt instead of happiness. Marcuse, in contrast to earlier thinkers, went even further than Reich in that he believed pleasure, particularly sexual pleasure, eros, was the be-all end-all of human existence, and that progress, all human progress and civilization, has been a denial of the pleasures of the body, that we intentionally deny the body in order to fulfill needs of society. But in the ultimate utopia, we will be able to, as Fourier said, only experience pleasure and merely maintain society basically at its current state.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much the plan. You know, for a libertarian who, your entire ideology is, "My freedom, leave me alone, ma. I want to listen to fucking Goldbergstein, whatever the fuck is Rothbard in my room. I want to listen to the Rothbard audiobook in my room. Don't come in. Don't tread on me, man." That's her entire. Given that's your entire ideology, you do seem to give too much of a fuck about what people do in their personal lives, right? Which really unveils the fascism in you, which really proves that all of these Gamergate 2016 cum stains on the bed that still haven't dried yet, who call themselves libertarian, the majority of them are just fascists. Who like to smoke weed and talk about more freedom of speech to discriminate against minorities and shit. And Aiden is using the whole, well, pedophilia is completely unjustifiable in order to chat shit about sexual liberation for adult women who can make their own fucking choices in life. Phrase it as something bad, as if it's any of her fucking business, right? While claiming to be a libertarian. Like, okay, if you're a fascist, you could say whatever. But you're a fucking libertarian, quote unquote, and like, cop the fuck on.
Moreover, Marcuse applied the fulfillment that most thoroughly benefits the welfare of children, because that's where this shit terrifies me. I'm worried about children. I know that that's a virtue signal, but I sincerely...
Yes, you're being an absolute SJW for the right now. And as we all know, it's not 2016. Anti-SJWs are actually more annoying than the so-called SJWs from the past.
And as I have provided evidence of, this is not good for children. Single-parent households are not good for children. But...
well, no one ever advocated for single-parent households. That's just a byproduct of capitalism. Really, people should be raised communally, which isn't really beneficial to any factory / business owners, but
It was not
alas.
involving children. If you want to fuck your boyfriend in the ass all day long, I do not give a single fuck. Again, I'm bisexual. But children are not capable of consent. And
I have a black friend.
moreover, when you discourage monogamy...
Who said anything about children? Aiden, so far, anyone that has ever said anything about children in this video was you. And me responding to you saying shit about children.
And two-parent households, it has negative effects on children, as we see time and time again. The research is fairly consistent. And when you start fucking with child development, both in the home and pedagogically, you are now stepping on someone else's rights. And I cannot abide that ethically nor at some point legally. I think this shit is without question child abuse. And we talk about cognitively deficit teenagers making
this shit that no one supports except ironically people on your side is bad. Yes. Is the left doing it? No.
Decision, for example, to...
So why the fuck is Lefty next to pedo in this video title? I have no clue. This video has absolutely nothing to do with either leftist or pedophiles. The Frankfurt School are liberals, for fuck's sake. Marxist, me whole.
Cut off their own genitals because being trans is totally awesome and popular? You are not talking about potentially...
Yes, it is fucking awesome, Aiden. It's totally awesome to go against society's expectations for what you should and shouldn't fucking be, right? Just to be yourself and go against the psychologists telling you and parents telling you otherwise. Yes, that's pretty fucking cool, right? And it doesn't matter how badly you phrase it. Oh, cutting off your genitals. You know, I can do that as well. I could say I woke up and went to work, and made bread fulfillingly, or I can say I woke up as slave 1199, brushed my teeth, did the same fucking thing, and went home depressed. It's the same shit, just phrased fucking differently, right? Except the way I phrased is fucking true. The way you're phrasing it has absolutely no coherent place anywhere in reality. Like I said, alternate universe shit right here, man.
Ruining that child's entire life. Do you know to what extent, motherfuckers, legitimate trigger warning for what I'm about to say here, trans women have to sit, often in extreme pain, and dilate their artificial vaginas with dildos for up to 5 times a day for months after sex reassignment surgery, and must continue to spend between 20 minutes to an...
Oh no, that's so terrible, despite the fact that the only people complaining about this are cis women who hate trans women. Literally, right? You don't hear trans people complaining about this shit. You just don't. If they do, it's literally a fucking grift. They're grifters. People who complain about this shit. They wouldn't have made the choice to be trans otherwise. If you genuinely make the choice to be trans, you know the risks that come with it, okay? I don't have to tell you you're suffering, right? Aiden is acting like a fucking car salesman or something, like, oh, why would you drive around in that piece of shite when you can buy like this piece of shite that's more expensive? How about you mind your own fucking business, Aiden? How about that? Yeah? You think it's cool being a cis woman? Well, go on, be a fucking cis woman. Like I said, like your crew, I think, libertarians would say, leave me the fuck alone. Don't tread on me, man. You know what I'm saying?
An hour dilating at least once a week for the rest of their lives. Hair frequently grows inside the artificial vagina, which needs to be manually plucked. Urination is usually messy and potentially highly embarrassing because it gets all over the place.
Oh no! It's embarrassing! And this is really fucking pathetic. I'm literally just gonna stop watching this. This is fucking pathetic. And what are you going to do? Attack the left now? Yeah. But what about the left? What about the left? Who are you going to bring up? Vosh? Right? Now, obviously he didn't sexually assault anyone. All of those are fake allegations, right? But I know you're living on a completely different and delusional planet. So, even with that logic, let's say he did sexually assault / R-word someone / grape someone in Minecraft, right? Let's say he did that, hypothetically. That's still one leftist figure. Who else are you going to bring up? Hassan, when he consensually had sex with a girl that wasn't even 10 years younger than him? Or what, are you going to bring up some leftist figure that no one's ever heard of? Like our old friend Aiden Paladin did in this video? And now,
The pedophiles of the right wing, brought to you. But since you, Aidan, are able to name a bunch of leftists that I've never heard of and say the left are nonsense, I have a knack for that of my own. Republican anti-abortion activist Howard Scott Heldred is a convicted child rapist in Florida. Republican anti-abortion activist Howard Scott Heldred is a convicted child rapist in Florida. Republican County Commissioner David Schwartz pleaded guilty to molesting 2 girls under the age of 11 and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Republican Judge Mark Pazuliak pleaded no consent to fondling, nice words, a 10-year-old girl and was sentenced to 10 years in probation. Right? See, they'd be giving people prison sentence, black people prison sentences for having a bit of crack. Not as in fun as a drug. Meanwhile, they get probation for molesting children. You know, the people that treat black people that way. Shows you who America is really run by. It's not the Jews, it's not the Democrats. Anyways, let's go continue. Republican anti-abortion activist Nicholas Marinsay pleaded guilty to possessing child pornography on his computer and offered a bounty to anyone who murders an abortion doctor. Republican legislator Edison Misla Andrano was sentenced to 10 years in prison for raping his daughter between the ages of 9 and 17. Republican Mayor Philip Gordiano is serving a 37-year sentence in federal prison for sexually abusing 8 and 10-year-old girls. Republican campaign consultant Tom Shortbridge was sentenced to 3 years of prohibition for taking nude photographs of a 15-year-old girl. Republican rapist pedophile United States Senator Storm Thurmond had sex with a 15-year-old black girl which produced a child. Just like his ancestors did, nothing special. Republican pastor Mike Hins, whom George W. Bush commended during the 2004 presidential campaign, surrendered to police after admitting to a sexual affair with a female juvenile. Republican legislator Peel Dibble pleaded no consent to having an inappropriate relationship with a 13-year-old girl. Republican Congressman Donald Buzz Lukens was found guilty of having sex with a female minor and sentenced to 1 month in jail. Pretty long prison sentence for that, eh? Molesting a child, 1 month in jail. Great. Not even probation can stop this. Republican fundraiser Richard probably paid Trump for his campaign, by the way, in 2020 and 2024. Richard A. Del Guido was found guilty of child porn charges and paying 2 teenage girls to pose for sexual photos. Great lad. That's where your money's coming from, Donald Trump. Republican activist Mark A. Gretton convicted of 6 counts of sex crimes involving children. Republican activist Randall David Ackley pleaded guilty to attempted sexual assault on a child. Republican Congressman Dan Crank had sex with a female minor working at congressional page. Republican activist Randall J. Ackley pleaded guilty to attempt sexual assault on a child. Republican Congressman Don Crane had sex with a female minor working as a congressional page. Republican activist Christian Coalition leader Marvely Russell admitted to incestuous relationship with his stepdaughter. Dixieland. Republican Congressman and anti-gay activist Robert Bauman was charged with having sex with a 16-year-old boy he picked up at a gay bar. Let's be honest, what was he saying? The left are pedophiles, yeah? Advocating for that anti-gay activist to get the left are grooming our children, doing that behind closed doors. Great fella. Republican Committee Chairman Jeffrey Pattee was arrested for a disturbing video clip of a 5-year-old girl being raped. Republican activist Marty Glickman, aka Republican Marty, was taken into custody by Florida police on 4 counts of unlawful sexual activity with an underage girl and 1 count of delivering drug LSD. Republican legislative aide Howard L. Brooks was charged with molesting a 12-year-old girl and possession of child pornography. Republican Senate candidate John Hathaway, a pretty important guy by the way, was accused of having sex with his 12-year-old babysitter. Money's coming from Donald Trump. Republican activist Mark A. Gretton convicted of 6 counts of sex crimes involving children. Republican activist Randall David Ackley pleaded guilty to attempted sexual assault on a child. Republican Congressman Dan Crank had sex with a female minor working at congressional page. Republican activist Randall J. Ackley pleaded guilty to attempt sexual assault on a child. Republican Congressman Don Crane had sex with a female minor working as a congressional page. Republican activist Christian Coalition leader Marvely Russell admitted to incestuous relationship with his stepdaughter. Dixieland. Republican Congressman and anti-gay activist Robert Bauman was charged with having sex with a 16-year-old boy he picked up at a gay bar. Let's be honest, what was he saying? The left are pedophiles, yeah? Advocating for that anti-gay activist to get the left are grooming our children, doing that behind closed doors. Great fella. Republican Committee Chairman Jeffrey Pattee was arrested for a disturbing video clip of a 5-year-old girl being raped. Republican activist Marty Glickman, aka Republican Marty, was taken into custody by Florida police on 4 counts of unlawful sexual activity with an underage girl and 1 count of delivering drug LSD. Republican legislative aide Howard L. Brooks was charged with molesting a 12-year-old girl and possession of child pornography. Republican Senate candidate John Hathaway, a pretty important guy by the way, was accused of having sex with his 12-year-old babysitter, Jesus, withdrew his candidacy after the fact. After the allegations were reported in media lies. Republican preacher Stephen White, who was demanding a return of traditional values, was sentenced to jail after offering $20 to a 14-year-old boy for permission to perform oral sex on him. I don't know, man, $20 is $20, man. Like, I ain't gay or anything, but money is money. Republican talk show host John Matthews pleaded guilty to exposing his genitals to an 11-year-old girl. Republican anti-gay activist, they're really pumping them out in a fucking factory here. Earl Butch Kimmering has been sentenced to 40 years in prison for molesting an 8-year-old girl after he attempted to stop a gay couple from adopting her. Republican party leader Paul Ingram pleaded guilty to 6 counts of raping his daughters and served 40 years in federal prison. At least he actually served time in fucking jail, like the other ones. Republican, maybe he wasn't favoured by the party, maybe he was too left-wing, maybe he didn't molest enough children. Republican election board official Kevin Cohen was sentenced to 2 years of prohibition for soliciting sex over the internet to a 14-year-old girl. Republican politician Andrew Burr was charged with 2 counts of first-degree sodomy by a 13-year-old boy. Republican politician Keith Westmoreland was arrested on 7 felony counts of lewd, lascivious exhibition to girls under the age of 16, i.e. exposing himself
to little children. Republican anti-gay activist Earl Butch... Oh no, I already see this. Republican activist Alan Burt was charged with sexual misconduct involving a 15-year-old girl. Republican County Councilman Keola Childs pleaded guilty to molesting a male child. Reads like a fucking Onion article, really. Republican activist John Butler was charged with criminal sexual assault on a teenage girl. Jesus Alfred. Where has life gotten you? Republican candidate Richard Gardner admitted to molesting his 2 daughters. Republican councilman and former Marine Jack W. Granner was convicted of molesting a 13-year-old girl. Republican County Commissioner Mayor Robert Barrer pleaded guilty to unlawful sexual contact with a teenage boy. Republican City Councilman Fred C. Smeltzer Jr. pleaded to no consent of raping a 15-year-old girl and served 6 months in prison. Republican activist Parker J. Bennett pleaded guilty to possession of child pornography in his home computer, sentenced 13 months in federal prison and fined $18,000. Republican parole board officer from Colorado State Representative, sexual assault of a teenage boy. Again, fucking hell. Republican City Councilman Fred C. Smeltzer pleaded to no consent of raping a 15-year-old girl 7 months in prison. Republican director of Young Republican Federation Nicholas Elizondo molested his 66-year-old daughter and was sentenced to 6 years in prison for every year he raped her. Republican benefactor of conservative Christian groups Richard Dazen Sir was charged with the rape of allegedly paying a 15-year-old girl for sex. Dazen, 62, is married with a grown child and several grandchildren, and allegedly told police that over the past decade he paid more than $1 million to have sex with a large number of young people. Pretty Christian fella, this guy is. Definitely would get along with most normal Christians. Really preaching those values, man. Republican State Senator Ralph Shortney from Oklahoma admitted to being involving a 15-year-old girl. Republican County Councilman Keola Childs pleaded guilty to molesting a male child. Read like a fucking Onion article, really. Republican activist John Butler was charged with criminal sexual assault on a teenage girl. Jesus Alfred. Where have life gotten you? Republican candidate Richard Gardner admitted to molesting his 2 daughters. Republican councilman and former Marine Jack W. Granner was convicted of molesting a 13-year-old girl. Republican County Commissioner Mayor Robert Barrer pleaded guilty to unlawful sexual contact with a teenage boy. Republican City Councilman Fred C. Smeltzer Jr. pleaded to no consent of raping a 15-year-old girl and served 6 months in prison. Republican activist Parker J. Bennett pleaded guilty to possession of child pornography in his home computer, sentenced 13 months in federal prison and fined $18,000. Republican parole board officer from Colorado State Representative, sexual assault of a teenage boy. Again, fucking hell. Republican City Councilman Fred C. Smeltzer pleaded to no consent of raping a 15-year-old girl 7 months in prison. Republican director of the Young Republican Federation Nicholas Elizondo molested a 66-year-old daughter and sentenced to 6 years in prison. Republican benefactor of conservative Christian groups Richard Dazen Sir was charged with the rape of a 15-year-old girl for sex. Dazen, 62, married with a grown child and 7 grandchildren, police that over the past decade he paid more than $1 million to have sex with a pretty Christian fellas. This guy definitely would get along with it. Really preaching those values. Republican State Senator Ralph Shortney from Oklahoma admitted to being involved in sodomy with a 17-year-old male prostitute charged with pornography. Those look Republican Speaker House President and public weapons. President of high school. Republican judge, campaign official, President Donald Trump, Tim Nolan indicted for human trafficking and forcing minors to engage in sexual activities and giving alcohol to minors. Results from court pending. Right? Republican congressional candidate. Any more examples you need? Don't fucking think.
And so that was it. Maybe you learned something today. Or maybe you're still a right-winger. Who knows? But I think more people in BreadTube should shed light on the fact and normalise calling Republicans what they are. Lady bleeding feckin' pig. See you again in the next one, where I'll be talking about libertarians and all of that kind of stuff, right? And then a few more weeks after that, we talk about other stuff similar to this. But for now, subscribe, like, promote the video to everyone you know. I'll be seeing you at some point. I still don't have an outro. Right, go on. Feck off.